Good evening. How's everyone doing tonight? Good to hear that. It's good to see you all. I believe we're on page 62.
61.
Well, I was actually looking at 61. It said 62. Yes, it'll be right there where it says how God's people should live before the world. And this focuses on verses 11 through 12. And by the scriptures that we're about to read, as I was looking at them myself, I thought, well, you know, this is what Christ wants us to be. But if you really look at it in detail, you know, you may find yourself dealing with the governors of this land, I guess, authorities of this land, and not really liking it too much. I guess we can obey the laws and not like them. But, you know, those comments will be brought up as we get to them. It was just a thought that I had there as I was reading. And it's not always easy, is it, to obey some of the laws that they got out. And if you've ever picked up a law book and looked at it, what we're actually supposed to live by, it's staggering. Many laws that they don't enforce, but if they wanted to, they could.
I think there's some of the old laws that are left on the books, they just have got rid of it. You know, like the, don't let your horse be drinking out the trough, you know, the town.
Right.
You just ain't got rid of all of it.
It's a little western now.
Yeah.
Well, they still got it too in the law books to, somebody steal a horse, they hang 'em. It was back, I remember Sam Ward up there had him talking about it. He was still on the book.
I had the misfortune once of pleading my case before a judge that I was innocent of a certain thing I was charged with, and my attorney looked at me and she said, you know that little manual that you hunters and fishermen go by? She said, you really need to go get the main little law book on this and study it carefully, because they can actually, if they want to, get you just for walking into the woods. Now, this is what she told me, the purpose of going in to hunt. And I was like, really? She said, you need to get the law book and look at it. If they wanted to enforce it, you wouldn't be able to go into the woods and hunt. But anyway, thought I'd bring that up. And if there's nothing else, any comments, we'll go ahead and just jump right into it. First question says, how are God's people to act and think regarding fleshly lust?
They're to abstain from them.
And they do what? The lust, what does the lust do?
It wars against us. Flesh.
Cause when it sins.
When it's conceived, it brings forth sin. Yeah.
In the very verse that tells us to abstain from it, it says, and it also tells us which they war against the soul.
You know, Mark, Galatians chapter 5, starting in verse 19, tells you the actual works of that flesh. He says, which are adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lewdness, idolatry, sorcery, hatred, contentions, jealousy, outbursts of wrath, selfish, ambitious, dissimulation, I think I'm saying it right, and heresy, envy, murder, drunkenness, raving, and such like. So it tells us what wars against our soul is those sins there. That's what the flesh does to.
You know something too, is when you as a Christian, you don't feel that war going on, sometimes it's a bad thing.
It can.
You get so comfortable with certain things.
It can be. I don't think.
Romans 5:22 says, not be partakers of other man's sin.
I honestly don't think a Christian's life has to constantly be in battle. Any soldier will have ups and downs, you know, in that. But yeah, if you go for extended periods of time, and you might be, you know, you might not be in the battle.
Well, the thing about this war that we have, and this warfare that we go through, there is no such thing as a truce. There's no such thing as a truce about it.
No, Satan never.
It is, we're bitter enemies. We are bitter enemies. There's just no way that you can sit down at the table and call a ceasefire.
No, not in that regard. But
Yeah.
but in every Christian's life, you have good days,
Yeah.
and then you have bad days in regard to that, because
Well,
you know
you know,
how
we got-
it can get heated
Yeah, well,
more
that's
than.
not, that's a good word, it's called, you know, it's like with our lives, like you said, and even then in war, you have some days that you could sort of relax, but then if you relax too much, then you get right in the heat of the battle, and you could lose that.
Oh yeah, let your guard down. We're told not to let our guard down. We have a comparison here that it wants us to make. Would somebody pick up there at 1 Thessalonians 5:22 and read that for us? It's pretty much what it's saying in, already in question 1, but just a little bit different. Turn to it.
Well, there he tells us to abstain from all evil.
Mhm. And what I'd seen there is abstain from every form of evil,
Yeah.
All appearances,
or all appearances.
even if it looks evil.
Yeah, where there's doubt, you know, especially, you're better to stay away from. And if it, in most of the cases, if it looks to be evil and wrong, you know, it usually is. Question 2: what do fleshly lusts do?
Wars against the soul.
2a says, who will help God's people overcome these lusts?
God will, He will, His word will.
Somebody look at 1 Corinthians 10. Let's read 10 through 12. Yeah.
Neither murmur ye, as some of them also murmured and were destroyed of the destroyer. Now all these things happen unto them for examples, and they are written for admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. Wherefore let him that thinketh he standeth take heed lest he fall.
I would have liked if he'd have went right on down to 13.
There hath no temptation taken you but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that you are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear it.
I don't know why he didn't include that into the, but I'm just going to go out on a limb here, and I'm thinking he's looking for the destroyer, because the destroyer would be an encouragement, knowing what happened to those people. I mean, that's the way I looked at it. I don't know if that's the exact answer he wants here, but I don't know what else he could have got from those verses other than the destroyer being.
I think that you're right. I think he missed his verse. I think 13 is actually the answer to it. The Lord will not have us tempted above that which we're able, but with the temptation make us a way out. And so what does the verse say? Who will help us? Then God says, I'll make you a way out. The word, that's your help right there. So I think what he's done, he's missed his verse. He should have had 13.
But even at that, I mean, well, I don't know if it would work toward us the way it did them. But it is for our learning, you know, these scriptures and us being reminded of what happened to the children of Israel would definitely, you know, make one think. But I'm like you. I still think he missed out a verse, but
Yeah.
the destroyer is the only thing that I. But I actually put God, you know, I did give God the answer, but then I come back and said the destroyer and put that down, question mark, we'll talk about it.
The fact of this chapter here, when you look at this chapter, it is talking about children of Israel, what they did, and them sitting down and playing, and their sins and everything like that. Now, Paul's saying to these Jews here and these Christians, just like to us, look at these people.
Look
See
what happens.
These people did. See what happens when they fail to do what God says. The snakes come in, the fiery snakes, and they would bite them. And that was where they were being destroyed by the destroyer, because God sent the serpent on them, and the serpents would bite them, and they'd die unless they went to the totem pole, we might call it, of the whatever they erected there, the snake, and had to look on it. And so God is saying to us through the writing of Paul here, you look at that and take warning, because you're no different. You may be destroyed in a different way, but nevertheless, you'll end up with the same fate as they did.
Any further questions, comments about this? Okay. If not, question 3. What exhortation is given in verse 12?
Have an honest conversation among the Gentiles. That's what I got. They shall behold, glorify God in the day of visitation.
Mine says having your conduct honorable among the Gentiles.
Wherefore let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he falls.
Take heed.
That was my thought on it. If you think you be strong, take heed. But there was, I think I heard 2 other.
Well, it's according where you get the verse from.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is,
Well-
you get it from 1 Corinthians there where he's talking about it. He says, let us take heed, think about it. He that think he stand, he's going to fall. But then if you come back to
What?
Peter here, you can get a different answer to it.
What did it say, verse 12?
Having your conduct honorable among the Gentiles, that when they speak against you as evildoers. And so there you would say that was the exhortation that we,
Yeah, it's not.
right, so if they speak evil of us.
He wasn't very clear if he was carrying over the 12 from the previous 1 Corinthians, or if it's.
That A should belong to 2, though, and 3 starts a new.
Excuse.
Although I've got Corinthians.
Now, what'd you make reference?
Okay, with 2, you've got A, and then out there it's got 1 Corinthians and another number 3.
Yeah,
So that should be a new.
new section.
Okay.
Yeah, new thought.
Okay, so then.
It just goes with number 2.
Yeah.
Corinthians.
It actually the question of pertain to 1 Peter, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
At least that's my thought.
yeah.
Having your conduct among the Gentiles. That
So
would-
this means to keep on pursuing the godly life and be an example to people?
Well, yeah, when having your conduct, what is your conduct? It's your actions, your way of life, honorable among the Gentiles. All right, when the Gentiles seen you, these heathen, that when they speak against you as evildoers, now they're going to speak against these people, they may by your good works. Now, what is it that Jesus says about us? He said, you're a light of the world, you're the light of the world. And he said, let them see that good light, that when they see that good work that you're doing, they may glorify God. So the same principle is here. Which they observe may glorify God in the day of visitation. So Peter's using pretty much the same language that Jesus used.
And that's actually while you're doing good,
Yeah.
My version said keep their behavior excellent.
Well, yeah, that's, you're reading what, the New King James or
Yeah.
the NABS says that too, I think.
Now, what does it mean to exhort someone, or exhortation?
Encourage, encouragement. Encourage them.
Okay. All right, on to, if no further comments, we'll go on. What does conversation mean?
That's what you're talking about. You know, I mean, what your language is, how your language is.
Is it always their conversation, speech?
Call it a conversation or example. How do you say an example or couple?
Usually when the word conversation, it has to do with the way of life.
If you look-
It's not, see, we use the word conversation as like we're having right now. But when you look at it in the Greek and from what they talked about, it was
Conduct.
the way of your life.
Yeah.
Just like he talks about the walk of life. Well, the walk of life is your conduct again. And so when he says, sure, that they may see your good works as the honorable among the Gentiles, having your conduct or your behavior. If you say this person conducted themselves very well, that meant that they were very well behaved.
Does someone in here have the King James Version?
I know.
How does it read on that?
King James probably says conversation.
Probably does. Well, that's,
Having your conversation on
Yeah.
this.
well, both does. American Standard, I think, does it read, I know one of them's conduct, ain't it?
Well, that's the New King James, and that's what I'm reading. And I'd say if you read the NAB or the American Standard, it would have either conduct or behavior. Conduct, yeah.
Yes. Any more questions? Okay. Why is it important that the behavior of Christians be always honest?
We have to give account to God if we're not honest. We lie and stuff like that. We don't have to account to God for it.
Well, again, go back to Matthew chapter 5, verse 16. We're the light of the world. We're the salt. We're the Savior. We're the salt of the earth. We're the children of God, and we're to put forth the light.
Unless I'm reflecting to opposite total passage, I was thinking it would mention of being of the light in some sort in this chapter.
I
Okay.
put down Philippians 2:15.
Okay, maybe not. Yeah, well, I thought it. What I wrote down was when we speak, when they speak against you as evildoers, they will glorify God. And I thought he was still kind of carrying that through myself.
Well, you think about it, if you look
course
at
it-
it and say you let your conduct, your behavior and stuff like that,
That's your life.
be as like it
Your
is,
light.
then if it's like it is, then certainly it is important for a Christian to have that kind of light, because people are going to be looking at it, and if you have anything less than that, then that don't work neither.
Well, I think the conduct here is talking about the same as your life, your works, your light.
Okay, with your behavior, then that is going to affect every aspect of your life. Your behavior is. Ever how you act out in public or wherever you're at, that's going to tell people about the whole of that person.
Tell a lot about your character.
Right.
Well, I know you've always heard that actions speaks louder than words.
Right.
You know, sometimes we can even say good things and then our actions are vice versa.
I've heard saying it, the only Bible some people will read is in you.
That's true. And we're going to get in the next chapter a little bit that I don't want to jump into something before we get there, but an unbelieving husband can be guided or won by the conduct of the wife. Okay, I have a good question for you. What is the day of visitation? That's easy, actually an easy one.
You're asking them in judgment.
Inspection.
Coming of Christ, what I mean.
What was that, Arva?
Coming of Christ, the visitation of the coming of Christ.
I put God's return, the Lord's return. That's what-
But in time of judgment.
I hate to be black sheep of the group.
Oh no, here we go.
If you look at this again, and there are several different ways that you look at He says, you have your conversation among the Gentiles, or your conduct among the Gentiles, that when they may speak evil against you, they may see your good works, which they observe, glorify God in the day of visitation. Is this talking about living in such a way that when these heathen people see how you live and they have the opportunity to obey Christ in the visitation of the gospel or whatever, just like with the Gentiles, when they see this good life, that when they get visited with the gospel, that they will accept it. So because when you
Could
look
be.
at that, it don't seem like it's talking about the end of time, because it says, may see your good works, which they observe, glorify God in the day of visitation. Well, listen, if you're not a Christian, if it's in the time, you're not going to glorify God then. You're
It's a
too
little
late
late
to
to
be
be
glorifying.
glorifying God then, ain't it?
Huh?
It's a little late to be glorifying
That's
God.
right.
Well, he did, God
I
did.
think the visitation here is talking about the actual, the gospel to the Gentiles.
Well, God did say every mouth will profess him, so in that aspect, yeah, they'll be glorifying him.
Well, that's
They'll be giving him glory, because whether they want to or not, they're going to give him glory, but whether they get a reward or not, but every mouth will confess in that day.
Who's he talking to, Christians or non-Christians?
Well, he's talking
Christians.
to Christians. You conduct yourself in a way that when the heathens out here see you, they'll see that and they'll glorify God. Well, how will they glorify God? It's going to be in obedience. Now, not everybody, but some of them would see that and really see the meat of a Christian's life, and they would want that. And so they would have reason to glorify God on that day of visitation, because this gives them the opportunity. Just like the Bible says, today if you hear his voice, harden not your heart. That's your visitation. There's the Lord visiting you with the gospel.
He does what?
Not the other. So I think that's the ideal here of this visitation. Because when he comes back in judgment, it's not just to visit with you.
And I think the ideal is carried right on through about letting their light shine, converting men in that way. It kind of drifts over into chapter 3 there a little bit, because with the wife, with the unbelieving husband, by her conduct, she could win the husband. And we can do the same thing as Christians to mankind out in the world. In some cases, maybe not all, but I'm sure, and I've heard stories where a Christian or person would remain faithful in the company of evil people, and it have some influence on them. They would be influenced in some way. Where do we go to? All right, page 62 now. Since I wanted to get there so quick, here we are. And it's Christians and civil rulers. These questions and answers will be coming 13 through 17. Christians are a holy nation unto God, but they live under civil rule in this world. What should be their attitude towards civil rulers?
Submit to them for the Lord's sake.
Obey the law that they make.
Verse 13 says, therefore submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake, whether to the king as supreme. And question 2 there kind of goes with it. In civil rule, kings rank what?
It's more in the code.
But are they exceptions to these laws?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, there's laws out there that allow you to do things. I think it's the ones that we have to abide by is the laws that say you have to do this. There's laws that protect me if I want to do or be in a certain way, which is wrong. But there's laws out there that says I can't do this or I can't do that. I have to do this or I have to do that. Those typically you have to abide by.
Unless
Well-
it
There's not very many that do that I know of, unless it is some of these new ones that's trying to come up. It says you can't tell that person that they're in the wrong. You can't say this about that person.
Politically correct is what it's gonna
Well, that's what they say. But
What if somebody comes to you and says, the law gives me the right to have an abortion? Does that make it right?
it does.
Can we abide by that law?
We understand that law, but you have a freedom whether or not to do that. There's other laws that are laid down where you don't have the freedom.
Here's the
As of
thing.
yet.
Yeah, then the law comes back and says, we need to accept homosexual marriage.
That's the problem.
Well, they say we need to accept this, what is it, Parent Hood or?
be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
See, we need to accept them. We need to be tolerant toward people like that. We need to learn to accept this alternate lifestyle. Now, they're trying, and even in some places now, is trying to make it to where that you can't say nothing about homosexuality. You know,
Hate crime. They call it.
call it gay. I call it homosexual.
Yeah, they're calling it a hate crime,
Yeah.
and if they word it and arrange it in such a way, they can actually bring charges.
I think that when the Bible lays out that we are to be subjected to the laws of this land, is to the laws of the land that does not contradict or go against God's law. Now, when Peter and James and John and all of them was preaching the gospel, the authorities said, don't do that. It is against the law. You can't do that. We don't want you preaching in Jesus' name. We're outlawing that. And you'll be punished for doing so. Did they quit?
Yeah.
Who should we obey? God or man? Because that's what they asked them.
Yeah, who should we
What
rather?
about those that, wouldn't, refuse to bake a cake for those two gay, men or two homosexuals?
Yeah.
For their marriage, and then the woman.
Well, see that's the problem in this country. Religion's being attacked, no doubt, no question, because they're wanting to put a nail in us. They're wanting to nail us down to where we can't even say, you know, the Bible says that this or that. And in all honesty, if you had a halfway decent lawyer, and if this did come up, you could say, hey, this is not me. I'm not saying it. I'm reading this from a book. I didn't say that. Where they can nail you is where if you bring it out that it's your personal vendetta against. I mean, if you bring it out in such a way, now they can nail you to the hide, you know, that way. But now if you, and you can come off that way. Anytime you approach a person with something they're doing wrong, you can come off in a good way or a bad way, and it might be the truth, the bad way you tell them, and it could be the wrong way too.
It's in, on the news, one state is passing a law on abortion, that if you hear the heartbeat, they can't have an abortion.
Well, if a woman's pregnant, somebody hits them and kills them, they get
Get them for murder.
Yeah, yeah, 2 murders. And but they let the doctor take that 38 special there, clean it down the side, blow his brains out. No difference. They more different than laying a gun between a little young's eyes and shooting it than it is to take it out of the mother's and kill it.
Well, that's how messed up this country is, Carl. Like you said, I mean, that's not a bad thing. If a drunk person, or even if one of us accidentally kills a mother with a child, they can get you for manslaughter too.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now, if a doctor goes in there and kills his kid and hits the living thing, you tell me where's the justice in that? There is none.
It sounds to me like people
But
don't have to go to the creek and get a drink of water.
when Christians are contending with the things of this world, we're contending against principalities and powers and high places and so forth. None of Satan is never going to be, you know, neat and organized and make sense. There's nothing about Satan that makes sense. It's all disorganized. It's all unruly. It's in uproar, and that's fine with him. And on the other hand, God wants everything to be done decently in order. But Satan is totally opposite of that.
You know, sometimes people are kind of changing their stance, so like they were talking about some guys on Tucker Carlson talking about Mike Pence and his, I guess previously had some issues with homosexuality, and it sounds like he's kind of playing that down, and this guy that's calling in, he's like, basically most people don't think of homosexuality as a sin anyway. I mean, it's like people are just erasing what is right and wrong to make it right,
Well, you know, there's a,
and people backing down from what they believe.
Most modern programs or movies, almost every one of them, all the new movies and shows, whatever, series, whatever you want to watch on TV, if it's within the last 10 years, it will have it some form of homosexuality in that program. Even if it's just for a brief moment, some of them goes further than brief.
I've been watching a lot of shows that I used to enjoy.
Yeah,
but I
because
don't enjoy them now.
even ones that you could watch before are changing over now where they're accepting that in. And to people in the world, this may be a newer thing for us here than it is in California or New York. They've been living with that notion for many more years than, before it seeped in here and really started taking hold. And to them people, it's like breathing. They don't even think nothing about it. They actually get very insulted if you talk about a homosexual person or something. But when you go so far from God, you have a singed or a conscience that has been seared, and it doesn't have no effect on you.
And whatever sin it may be, you just keep slipping it in more, and pretty soon then it can seem so bad to us. If
When
we're not careful,
when Paul warned the
whatever the sin may be.
when Paul warned the elders that from among some of you these grievous wolves will slip in, that didn't just happen overnight, no doubt. That probably didn't happen overnight. It probably took some time, and it probably started out gradual, no doubt. And as this world is today, we're told it grows, it waxes worse day by day, and it will.
It's called conditioning people.
Excuse me?
They condition, people.
They've been actually outside the Christian realm. They have been very successful with it too.
I think one of Satan's biggest tools is Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
No question. Yeah.
Whatever they want you to think or whatever, they slowly work it in.
You know, you talk about condition, you take, just like gas prices is a perfect example for how they condition a person. They take it up and down, up and down, up and down, and up and down, and then when it comes down a little bit, then it shoots back up. You got now where you don't pay too much attention to it, do you?
No, but
It's just the norm.
when they first done it though,
For it to do that.
everybody was complaining when they first did it.
And you take sin. Sin is always attractive. It's always attractive. That's Satan's allure to the lust of the flesh, to the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. That's his three things he works with. And Satan works with them hard. And he tries to win people through them. And he does.
It's after our kids too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You could ask Nicholas about some of that stuff in school right now. It's shocking.
Yeah, and
And a young Christian person has to live with that.
it's pretty bad. And I've also been shamefully shocked by some of even the younger Christians how you maybe approach a conversation about homosexuality, how quick they are to jump and almost be defending it to some extent.
The homosexual.
Yeah, to some extent. And you know where they're getting it from? It's over at school. Because they have learned by the way they have talked about it that it's not something you do.
They have worked for years now trying to make this common.
And it's like we said, it's conditioning. And in time, as even at this point in our lives, if someone 200 years ago it's not possible, but someone from 200 years ago pop into this time, it would be unreal. They'd call a city Sodom and Gomorrah probably.
Well, when I went
And-
to school, they were there, I guess, but they kept it hid. They didn't want anybody to know it.
Well, like we said, it's that condition in part that makes even.
Stay in the closet.
But I must be real old.
Listen,
I never seen all that around.
Billy, where is it?
Go much, no out.
Where is it where the scriptures say that it's a shame to even speak of the things that they do in secret?
I think it's Romans chapter 1, Mark.
There was once upon a time to where it was shameful. It would actually be a kind of a embarrassing for Christians to even be saying, talking about it. But
Corinthians 5, when that man had his father's wife.
oh yeah, it's 1 Corinthians.
Okay, Mark, it's out here about being one. Likewise also
Yeah.
men leaving the natural use of the women, burning in their lust for one another, men with men committing what is shameful, and receiving unto themselves the penalty of their error which was due. Now I thought he was talking about shame.
Yeah, that's not exactly the one I was thinking
No,
of.
it's
But
Corinthians 5, when he had his father's wife, and he said that was a sin that even the heathens
didn't do.
speak about or something.
But it was being overlooked right in the. We can, even this day and age, find ourselves being dulled to things that we are to have difficulty talking about. Be honest with you, I can just imagine. I know it to be the truth. 50 years ago, it would be hard for Christians to probably even talk about it. I've heard lessons. Actually, I've heard some lessons that it was like, wow, that's kind of rough. But it's the truth, you know. And he was preaching against the truth. But, you know, in the day, you just didn't hear about it. You know, it wasn't an issue to have to worry about. Any more questions? Okay, if not, let's go on. 13, and they sing, let's see, governors for what purpose?
And judges, the punishment of evil doers.
Honestly, evildoers.
Punishment. Okay. Question 3. Did Paul say the same thing to those at Rome? And let's.
Yes.
Yes, it's a yes. I was going to have someone read that, but no. Question 4. How do Christians put to silence the ignorance of foolish men?
By doing good.
Okay, it's found in verse 15. Question 5. Although God's people are free, they have responsibilities. What charge is given regarding this freedom?
How about using your liberty as servants of God?
Uh,
Or not to
I've-
use it for a cloak.
yeah.
Malice.
Yeah, that's what I had down. Using it for an excuse, so to speak.
As a covering of sin.
What's that?
Use it as a covering of sin.
Yeah. Yeah. Good answer. Yeah, it's about the same ideal. What 4 charges are found in verse 17?
Honor all men.
Those are
Fear God.
honor
Honor the king.
Okay. 6a says, do these affect the Christian's influence in this world?
Yes.
Yes, it does. And what did the wise man say about the fear of God?
Beginning of wisdom.
Wisdom of knowledge.
Is the beginning of knowledge. Does honor the king mean that we should honor our president?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And what verse tells us to have every ordinance, or actually that's institution when it says, let's see, where's it at? I want to read that. Therefore, submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake, whether to the kings as supreme. That ordinance is actually institution. So that would be president, police officers, anything that is instituted for law and whatnot.
Not everybody does.
Yeah, that's why the prisons are full right now, and they're actually they actually have to turn some pretty bad criminals loose because there's no room in the prisons to hold them all. I mean, that's the reason they kick these drug people out so quick, is because the prisons are plumb full of murderers.
Well, if they keep going like they're gonna do, the next move is gonna be move all the good people into the prison because we'll have room to hold them and put all the criminals on the outside.
Oh, they'll tell you. If you talk to a law enforcement, they'll tell you straight up that there is a lot of people that should be behind bars that's not, because the prisons are so full that they can't keep them. They just keep the worst ones.
I think I read something a while back that said in Georgia, for every 13 people, there's one person in prison.
My goodness.
Yeah.
That's
How
bad.
many people outside gonna be able to work, feed them bunches locked up?
They get better food than we do.
I know.
And you're paying for it.
All the bad people's in jail and all the bad people be outside now. People in jail will start there for sure too.
It's bread and water, they take care of them.
A lot of it boils down to the government and the laws and things not enforcing. If we live back in the time of Christ or even back, less time that back, the punishment for these crimes was death. Hanging, all kinds of stuff, and they don't do nothing no more, they put them in jail and they give them everything they need. Well, there's some people can't survive without being in jail. And good things to get put back in there.
Do you know how many rock quarries it would take to do that now?
I do know.
You couldn't now, that's very big disaster.
I do know of a person right now that's in prison for 10 years. That's a long haul for theft. And there are people out right now for murder charges that didn't spend that much time. So, yeah, who's in prison? It's the real bad, people, murders, rapists, things like that. There's a bunch of them in there. But if you get caught with your hands in the cookie jar, you're gonna be gone for a long time.
I was passing by one of the work crews, guys was out working on the road, and I couldn't believe the older man that was out there working.
Yeah, we could see that too.
And I said, dude, there's an old man out there working.
Oh yeah, I've seen the work crews from prison and whatnot.
County work crew.
Yeah, older women, real old women and men. So
They supposed to know better, right?
yeah. From what I understand, some people live so long inside a prison that when they're released, they actually intentionally do something to be put back.
Yeah, they can't survive.
They can't.
It's been taken care of too long.
Well, a lot of them can't find jobs and stuff to take care of themselves.
Probably not, but there was, I imagine, probably all sorts of things. If you ask somebody, why they didn't go back, but I do know that about that they've been in there so long for whatever reason that they will commit a crime just for the sole purpose of being put back. Can you imagine a life like that? How far gone do you have to be to really want that? Okay, I see where time is up. We'll begin back with servants and masters, 18 through 25. If anyone is here tonight that wishes to obey the gospel, and you realize what you need to do to be saved, this time we have set aside for you, and not only you, but if you are a Christian that has erred from the truth, you also can make things right before God. Come and make your request be made known as we stand and sing.